just trying to figure out this contract like little bits, but comprehensively. I think that there's probably room to discuss and to play with it.
Okay. Because I mean, I want to make it clear that these cheeses are really just cosmetic, right? But they're only doing it for legislative reasons, for funding reasons. So I want to make sure it's got to be clear, you know. It's not like we're talking about the whole March project. We're not talking about the whole Highway 60 project. You know, two of the projects are basically well on their way.
It shows for here. I don't know where.
So I'm not really sure what we're
It
gonna
says
say
one
about that.
person's watching
Yeah.
it, so I
Well,
think that's you. But you're not.
I don't know.
Okay.
Both of those projects.
Yeah, I gotta figure out what-
Probably using it.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's, I mean, each one is, well, for March and Highway 60 is, they're separate projects. All we're doing is these are just kind of cosmetic. Legislative, and then I think we need to talk about potentially how we're gonna tackle it, the rest of the plan. Because I'm assuming we may add more things to each section for the barge and Eagle Center as it comes up. I mean, that's kind of the way I'm envisioning it, so, but, well, we can talk about that. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Do you want me to focus on what's being added to the plan?
Yeah.
Rather than the
Might be
sort of
around.
macro focus? How important to the overall idea of the project?
I don't think we just need to stress that we are not talking project specific topics. All we're doing is talking First agenda item is approval of minutes of the May 11th meeting. All right, we have a first. Jeff will second it. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, minutes pass. Any changes, additions to the agenda from anybody? Okay. All right, the next agenda item is public comment, and this is really related to, not related, I should say, to the comp plan public hearing. So any other comments that people would have unrelated to the comp plan updates, please step forward if you would like to address the planning commission. You don't have anything on. Okay. All right, I will just ask one more time, any public comment unrelated to the comp plan update? Please come forward. Okay, not seeing anybody in the audience coming forward and nobody on Zoom or.
Holly, do you have a comment?
No, I do not. Thank you.
All right, perfect. All right, we will move on to item number 5, a public hearing. So this is the updates to the comprehensive plan, or at least some updates to the comprehensive plan. And I think we just need to be specific that this right now is related to the port facility, the waterfront revitalization, and the potential for the Highway 60 realignment. So it's really updating that component of it and getting it into the comp plan. And I think after this public hearing, I think we can discuss the overall strategy for the comp plan, kind of like we did last meeting, just to refresh everybody's memory and kind of go that route. So I think that's where we kind of stand at this point. I will ask Harry Davis to just give a kind of a brief overview of the public hearing for comment. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so just to give a little bit of background as to how we got here. So there was some early discussions in 2021 between myself and city staff, just trying to get an idea as to when the comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2016, when that would be updated. And so, you know, we were looking at different ideas and trying to come up with, you know, sort of a scope for updating a comprehensive plan. And as a part of that discussion with city council, it was determined that, you know, there are some projects that the city is currently very interested in and working towards that would be beneficial to be part of the comprehensive plan for legislative and for also funding acquisition reasons. And so, you know, this is what is in front of you today, the 3 projects: the Wabasha Port Facility, the Waterfront Revitalization Project, and the Highway 60 realignment through what is currently the athletic fields. So for the port facility, the current idea behind that is that in the short term, to help out with the Army Corps, that the port facility would act as a means of transporting dredge material out of the river and into places within the area for that dredge material. And this was sort of this is a topic that the city and the Army Corps have been working on ever since I believe it was 2017 to try to figure out you know, where that sand might go and to sort of keep it out of locations that the Army Corps was considering as a part of their 2017 plan. So this port facility in the short term would be for dredge material. There's some discussion on the long-term benefit of it, and it's you know, it's anticipated to be a huge benefit to the community over time as potentially a commercial facility. For the Waterfront Revitalization Project, so this is in conjunction with the National Eagle Center, where there's a riverfront property, you know, just between those, I believe they're condominiums and the National Eagle Center, where it is intended for that to eventually become a public plaza and for some improvements to Big Joe Alley, the alley just south of that property. And alongside some of these improvements would be, potentially some dockage and outdoor amphitheater. And this would all be for the benefit of the public and to provide a really nice, space along the riverfront for people to enjoy for many, many years. So that is for the waterfront revitalization project. And then for Highway 60, it's been in discussion for a while, and we're talking to we're talking to MDOT about potentially relocating Highway 60 in a way where the current route has some issues for access at certain times of year and certain types of weather conditions, and that the situation where it kind of maneuvers currently through downtown might not be safe from a pedestrian perspective. And so as a result, what we're looking at and hoping to do is to realign it so that it's a much more straight route for shipping and for trucking, but it also takes a lot of that traffic out of what is identified as pretty urban residential areas. So the hope for this is that over time, the athletic fields at the athletic park would be relocated to area just around City Hall. And that the current athletic park would transition into potentially more residential development, perhaps even some mixed use depending on market demand. But that is an idea that was put forward in the Minnesota Futures concept plans that are included as a part of this packet. So really, for all three of these projects, what we're proposing to do is include these projects in the comp plan as amendments, and to have some language in there that would help support some of the efforts, either legislatively or for acquisition or for funding acquisition, to also provide some goals for each of these different projects so that they are well supported within the plan, and therefore we have a stronger case when trying to compete for funding and for support. And so that language and those goals are included in the packet. There are also some changes to the future land use map that might be crucial in terms of these developments, particularly for the port facility, as well as the changes to the waterfront revitalization project area. So with that, I know that there's a lot of information here that I did not cover in my oral presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions, happy to elaborate further. And then I also see that Brian Malm in the back has a lot of information about the port facility. If you have more questions about that, he would be able to answer.
All right. Thanks, Harry. Appreciate the update. I think we will just open it up really short. Any questions from the commission at all initially? No. All right, I will open the public hearing at 6:10 p.m. Again, please, if you come up and speak, please state your name, your address, and try to keep the comments to a 2-minute minimum, if you can. And next. Did I say minimum? Maximum? We for surely want you to keep it at a max of 2 minutes. Sorry about that. And again, I just want to reiterate that there will be a lot of probably public comments, commission comments, commission topics regarding the port and the Highway 60 project. So I don't want to get bogged down in the details of those projects. This is just really updating the comp plan. So with that, I will open it up for any comments that anybody would have.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. I instruct the Walter Carl on behalf of the corner interests that own Carl property. Appreciate Harry's report. You did a great job on it. I'm a retired planner, so I get a little bit better perspective on things like that than most people do. One thing that we would like to have the commission consider is the land use plan amendments that are reflected in the map. I do not have a copy of that here, but if you bring that up, the port facility ultimately will be this west, if you will, northwest of the St. Louis Hospital. And if you look at the land use plan map amendments that are proposed in the handout, you'll note that to industrial. However, a second property, which is to the map to the right, remains R1, will be part of the port facility at some point. And we would like the commission to consider adding that secondary piece to the right, if you will. Otherwise, we're going to have a piece of property R1 that's kind of jammed between the hospital and the port. The future of that use as a east property line that's well treed to keep any operations there insulated from St. Elizabeth, which is, I think, very important. I have no idea what the timeline for that would be, but it's going to be well done. They have plenty of property in mind first. I'll point out one thing as I make reference to that. In Harry's report, he makes reference to container. He makes reference to the rail relationship to the port for container traffic. I'm not so sure there'll be much rail port interface, even though the Corner family also owns a property on the other side of the road. There's now currently industrial in front of the railroad. However, I worked for the Illinois Recycling Association for 4 years working on container projects to take ag products back to Southeast Asia. Now that hasn't gone anywhere, and I think we all have been hearing about the issues in the container market. About that. But in any case, located 4 miles from that would be Ashland Furniture. They bring in 100 containers a day by rail. They have their own railway. Over here, we have to top off with corn, beans, PDG, just about anything, and go down the river by barge. The day is not here yet, it's coming. And that's why that other piece of property is important. Container operations take a lot of ground in a hurry. And that's probably what we want. That's the essence of my comments. I appreciate the opportunity to address the commission. Again, Harry did a great job on that report.
All right, Chuck, can you just sign in, please? There should be a sign-in sheet right there. Can you just sign in, please? Thank you for your
Sorry,
comment.
could you spell your last name?
DILL.
Okay.
And incidentally, my client's owners, who are here, by the way, support your proposed commitments. Done.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
I'd invite anybody else from the public to make any comments. I will ask one more time, anybody from the public would like to comment on the additions to the comprehensive plan?
It's only one person on Zoom.
Yeah, has anybody?
Oh, you can ask. Holly, did you want to make any comments?
All right, no, not hearing any. I will close the public hearing, 6:16 p.m. And I just first want to address Chuck's issue about the land use. I think that'll actually be readdressed when we actually bring the project forward. But if we want to include it, I think it's on page 21 of the PDF. I don't have a problem switching it, adding that parcel to the right, but I'll open it up. So I
I
just,
don't personally either. I mean, I think this is all relatively conceptual at this point.
correct.
Obviously, the decision to move forward with the port facility is not in our purview in this commission.
Not yet anyways.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
but, yeah, I think conceptually, I don't personally have a problem adding that lot to the discussion.
Any questions, comments from the commission members?
I guess the only thing I would say is, you know, one of the arguments that Mr. Dillery made in the letter that he sent to all of us before this meeting was, that in part, we're taking advantage of the fact that that's the two lots that are already being proposed in the pack that we have are already kind of naturally depressed.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I guess we need to figure out how that works with respect to the mining ordinance as a whole too. And I can't speak to the specificity there right now, but that'd be the only thing I'd be worried about is if all of a sudden we lose some, you know, elevation there that would somehow impact the community in a way that we haven't anticipated yet. But
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think if we would readdress that issue probably when it comes forward, either the council would or this as a zoning part of it. So, Jared?
Could I ask Mr. Delarue a question?
Sure.
Just, I didn't realize till we got the minutes that you were the Chuck that was on the Zoom call at the last.
Probably, actually, no.
Right, and, so I did, just as a pointer, if you're on a call like that, it'd be helpful to people like me to have your last name included. It just said Chuck, and I didn't know who Chuck was. Maybe you didn't want it, you want to know who.
Well,
Anyway, you
I
had
live
said.
2 blocks from here.
Oh, okay, so, you know, the nature of a Zoom call is sometimes you don't hear everything quite the way it was, but I recall you saying something about St. Louis and the port down there and no?
Well, I mean very well, because I'm very familiar with that, I just don't, what I think I said was this. This relates to the grant application that Bowman Bank is working on right now for our port, okay, to be submitted to MARAD. And I think what I mentioned was, we had talked about this with the MARAD regional director in St. Louis. And she was very supportive of the project here in Wabasha for obvious reasons, you know, a sister, brother, whatever. That could be what you heard.
Okay,
As long as I'm up here.
there was something about winning something away, so maybe it was winning a grant or something like that.
Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about what the history is behind that program.
Okay,
And the fact that ports like potentially Waukesha, being as small as they are have been competing with Oakland and New Orleans, Houston, and Norfolk, and places like that. We don't look real good. So Congress in December, when they passed the new defense spending bill, and this was Congress, not Mark, stuck a provision in there and said, now we're done with that. We're going to take 20% of the total amount, which is $230 million. We're going to set it aside for something called small ports, small projects. And now we are competing against people closer to our own size. Maximum grant is 4.1 mil, minimum is 1 mil, and so on. And you know, Brian and I were on a conference call. Pretty good. Brian and I were on a conference call, a web training session for this program about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And the question came up, well, geez, can rural communities compete? And the answer from these people who are all PhDs will be reviewing this project. And I said, make sure when you write your application, say rural, early and often. Yeah, so they're after. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have one more thing if I could.
All right.
Back to that now. If you look at the parcel that's proposed for the comp plan land use amendment, almost half of that is not developed. The stuff to the west and the cities have review done at that site, as has the core. The stuff, the part to the west.
Yeah, the boot to the left,
Yeah.
upper left.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all swamps or trees.
It's wetland.
Yep.
And so there'll be nothing up there. The only area that's really developable would be, well, you can see it, where it's got
The yellow, correct. I think we just drew it there because that's where the property is. But
Yeah, that's correct. I want everyone to understand that it looks like there's a lot in there, but it really isn't.
No, totally understand.
But thank you.
Thank you,
Did I
Chair.
answer your question?
Yes.
Any other questions while I'm here? Super, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, here's the deal.
The letter from, the application is due by July 31st. That must be the federal grant that you're referring to.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I received a letter, from Sean Coder, and it makes reference to an application that is due by the 31st for a federal grant.
That's the one I'm referring
That's the
to.
one.
You know, the Port Authority already has 2 state grants, totaling about 750,000. But we're looking at 2.7 million grant. Hopefully we can get that federal grant and local money will be pretty minimal compared to federal. Hopefully.
Oh, I have one more question. So, a benefit cost analysis was completed for the facility and identified an estimated 10-year economic benefit of over 20 million with a benefit cost ratio of over 7. Who did that cost analysis?
Brian and I did. And there's a formula for doing this. We did that for the state grant, the second state grant. And the state statutes that requires that, but they've never asked for it to pass. So we went ahead and did it using the federal guidelines, the federal DOT guidelines, which are pretty specific as to how to do it.
Okay,
And just to give you a hint, anything over 3 to 1 on cost benefit ratio is considered excellent.
All right, any other questions for Harry or myself, or any questions at all related to the resolution?
yes,
Okay.
Sharon again. So I've been getting a lot of feedback from people about a proposed port, and maybe it's not the time to discuss it, but I'm wondering if the language needs to be as specific as it is for a comp plan.
Such as,
Well, the whole specifics of a development versus discussing that as part of a plan going forward. The reason I ask is I've gotten a lot of feedback from boaters and fishermen and people of like all socioeconomic and political persuasions that express concerns about having this, having a port and a commercial port. It would be one thing with sand, but then it says in here other commodities. And I know a couple of people were concerned there'd be container ships backed up through this most beautiful part of the river. But maybe that's something that will be dealt with later. I just hate to see if it's in the comprehensive plan.
I don't know, my comment on the amendments to the comp plan as it relates to the port facility are generic enough. And it's basically telling us this is what we're considering. I don't think this technically, and Chuck may disagree with me. Could it stop and never discuss again? Absolutely, but we potentially want to look at the economic development of it.
Right.
So this is all, to me, what this is comp plan is doing. Now, regarding those issues,
Yeah.
to me, that's a much broader discussion when the
That'll be
Port
down the
Authority is
road.
potentially proposed.
Yeah.
So now we're not proposing the Port Authority, at least in my eyes. All we're doing is considering it as the economic development of Wabash. So I think the comp plan needs to be much broader sense, is like my idea. So I think moving forward, and we most certainly can have those conversations here as it gets closer and closer, as we start talking with Brian and Harry and whoever else about what we are going to do to that land. And because there's going to have to be numerous public hearings, I'm guessing, with the land use changes, with all the potential conditions we may need to put on it. Is it going to be a IUP, CUP, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Still hasn't been decided. So
Okay,
that's how I would approach the comp plan.
so what, one person felt, who actually read the whole packet, felt that the idea of the port was in direct conflict with the Wabasha waterfront revitalization, where it stated that the Eagle Center is located in a growing ecotourism corridor. So that's the reason what's so funny?
Well, that's an interesting wording, but
Anyway, I just wanted to express.
No, that's a good opinion.
So,
No, I totally agree with you.
I know, I totally understand what you're
just
saying.
based
Sharon.
on feedback.
And I guess my feeling being on this commission is that, you know, we can earmark this or approve to kind of, I don't even know if we would necessarily need to specify these properties if we were gonna talk about a comp plan, but we could say, you know, if we wanted to get really generic about it, we could say, Wabasha needs to think about some means of managing the dredge material and prevent the possible, you know, unfriendly overtaking of a residential property by the
Yeah.
Army Corps again.
Mhm.
And, you know, we propose or move to work with the Army Corps to develop a sustainable partnership that will
Yeah.
allow us to deal with this dredge material.
Which
This is a very specific location and a very specific solution that's being proposed, and I know there's been a lot of work done on it. But I think if we wanted to satisfy the kind of overarching goal of the comp plan, I don't know that we need to get as specific as saying this lot and this lot personally, but, and that would maybe push some of those specifics and looking at the cost benefit and being able to hear public comment about the pros and cons of this type of facility. And, you know, not to just push it off, but we haven't been a part as a commission of all those discussions about what it means economically for the city. You know, is this a net win for the property owners, or is this, how is the city actually gonna get funds through this? You know, we've talked about some sort of a usage, or I can't remember the exact terminology that's been used, but some sort of a, you know, a fee that we would get is, what is that net the city as a whole? And then with that information, people at public comments down the road, or commissioners or city council members can decide, yeah, this is worth it. But I don't know, we're not making that decision here. All we're saying is, do we want it as part of the language of the plan? So.
Good point.
So just a change to the future land use map, just a change of the zoning, say from from rural residential to industrial, or just that change alone would open it up, you know, for future development in some of those places without, so there's a lot of language here that's very specific to be amended and added into different sections of the economic development and historic preservation. And it does seem pretty detailed to me.
Yeah, oh, it is detailed.
So if we approve
And
it,
I'm glad that much thought and planning is, you know, put into it. I just feel uncomfortable based on feedback, like seeming to endorse specific plan.
I totally agree, but I see this.
The only thing I would say, the only change that I would make and not, you know, I know that a ton of work's been done on this, but in paragraph section 1, paragraph A, number I, if you go to the second page there, or the very last sentence, over 30 acres of land has been identified in the northeast corner of the city on which the river port terminal could be located. I mean, could potentially be located. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever, you could just say, use the word potentially to say, hey, this is an idea. But I think it's, honestly, I think it's big enough that it's okay. I mean, I'd be okay with the language as it is even.
Chris, did you have any?
I don't know, we do have to, I do think it's important to state our intention that we are interested in that. I mean, if we want to apply for that federal grant, I think that's important to have maybe some of that language in there, that we're open to that possibility.
And that's my thought on the maps as well. It's not saying we're changing it. It's just, that's the suggestion we are looking at and moving forward with that. Again, there's gonna be numerous public hearings and changing that status from rural or R1 to industrial, so.
Yeah, and also to bring us back to where we were 3-4 years ago, when we had, you know, the very strong possibility of tons of mined sand coming across the bridge on our roads. And I think we need to weigh that as a planning commission too, to say, boy, how do we want, yeah, all those trucks coming through town, going to the railway and all that stuff. So, yeah, I guess, I think that the prep's been really well done. I'd make a motion that we approve the language for the amendments as they've been written.
Okay, so we have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, further comments?
And I'm talking about for all 3 items.
Yeah, you want the resolution in general. Yep.
See, I'm totally comfortable with the waterfront and the field, the road, highway realignment. I just wonder if we could just separate the port facility and make it a little more generic.
I don't know where we would make it generic other than removing that sentence of over 30 acres. I mean, this is our intentions. I mean, it's not like we're not considering it as a city.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
they've been working on it.
I don't know, I mean, I know the language is specific in some areas, but I guess I'm open to whatever changes you guys would recommend, but I personally think it's generic enough and as well as specific enough to potentially get funding, legislative support and stuff like that. So it really shows the intention.
Mhm.
But again, this is not to say that we can't amend this again. So we are going to look at the whole comp plan in general, and this will come up again to make sure that we potentially could modify it again if all needs to be. So that would be my only other recommendation or comment I would make on that. So we have a first, a second. Any further comment at all? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution in our packets, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, it passes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Harry. It looks like no other business, no old business, new business. You want to just talk about it? Yeah, we'll get more next month if we have a meeting. Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for July 13th. I believe it's a Tuesday, second week of July. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd make that motion.
We got Sarah and Sharon. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Okay, no, I think, you know, agenda items next month, I'd like to cancel.
Oh, yeah.
But, and then just work on the overall strategy. August, September, something. That's,
Oh, that's it, all projects.
Okay.
That would be on July.
And I organize
We didn't ask,
that.
Nice to see you.
Oh,
Here.
Here.
Here.